Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. Totally dysfunctional is the only way to describe it. Democrats, you made your beds and now you gotta sleep in it. Or I guess probably more accurately, you got in a loveless marriage with progressive Democrats, and now you're stuck. What did they think was gonna happen? Of course they wanted to win. Democrats know the only way that they can possibly win elections is by allowing socialists to live amongst them. The last thing Democrats want is for Bernie Sanders and AOC to start a third party and to start splitting the vote, so what do? They try to form an alliance. And for a little while they were sustaining it, but you can't have a political party that is fractured. You can't have a political party with wildly changing political viewpoints and philosophies. A little bit of fluctuation is fine, but for the most part, if you want stability and a coherent message for people to vote for you, you need to have exactly that, a coherent message, a coherent ideology. That is the beauty about the conservative parties, that for the most part, people feel the same way about issues. In the Democrat Party, it is the complete opposite. You have a group of capitalists, socialists, straight up communists, people who support the police, people who want to defund the police abolitionists, die-hard Israel supporters, people in the middle ground, and of course the full-on anti-Semites in the Hamas caucus, from radical to extreme to lefty to moderate, all encompassed in one political party. How do you think that's gonna go? Well, clearly it's not going too well, as the Democrat establishment continues to stab the far lefty base in the back, and it's slowly going from disagreement to dysfunction to total chaos, plunging the Democrats to all-time lows. Today's video, left-wing activists storm out of a meeting with Joe Biden, claiming that they've reached a turning point. Far lefty Twitter folk, you should have taken a hint when Joe Biden told you he's no socialist.
I beat the socialists. That's how I got elected. That's how I got the nomination. Do I look like a socialist? Look at my career, my whole career. I am not a socialist.
I don't see socialism as a very useful substitute.
So we got a lot to get into, folks. The topic of today's video, total Democrat dysfunction. But before we get into any of it, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share the video as much as possible. We are still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm, hidden from non-subscribed viewers. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so here's the first headline. Angered activists storm out of meeting with Biden administration, quote, reached a turning point. Immigration activists storm out of a meeting with top Biden administration officials on Saturday, apparently upset that President Joe Biden is breaking yet another campaign promise. During his campaign, Biden promised to end former President Donald Trump's Remain in Mexico policy, which is officially known as the Migrant Protection Protocols. Trump created the policy to end so-called catch and release, where migrants seeking asylum in America are released into the US while their case progresses through the immigration court system. Biden initially made good on his promise on his first day in office. Biden suspended the policy. The administration formally ended the policy this summer. However, the Supreme Court ruled in August that Biden needed to reinstate the policy. The administration announced Friday they would reinstate it to comply with federal court rulings. What happened now? Immigration activists met virtually with top members of the Biden administration on Saturday, including Homeland Security officials and the White House Domestic Policy Council's Esther Olivaria. At some point, dozens of activists storm out of the meeting angry over Biden's broken promises. The activists were reportedly upset that Biden will enforce the Remain in Mexico policy. Before leaving the meeting, the activists accused Biden of playing politics with human lives. The activists reportedly said, "We have sadly reached a turning point. I cannot stand one more meeting of them pretending," Ariana Saludares, who attended the meeting, told Politico. "They're giving us accolades on the outside, but on the inside, we're having to take out the metaphoric knives from our back. It's almost like we're being bamboozled into thinking that this was going to be the best option, and it isn't. It's actually worse," she added. "It is as if you know that your family is now turning against you and telling you that it's okay. It's not." Luis Guerra, who also left the meeting, said, "We don't actually believe they're doing everything in their power to actually restore asylum at the border, the way that they say they're trying to." And so here we go again with lefties reaching a point of epiphany, realizing the Democrats don't have their back, and once again throwing a total tantrum that they're not able to subvert the legal process. The Supreme Court reinstated Trump's Remain in Mexico policy for a reason, because Joe Biden canceled it in a totally unlawful manner. But of course, lefty activists don't care about process. They don't care about laws. They only care about feelings. But the beautiful part here is that they're finally realizing that Joe Biden and the Democrats Democrats are not their friends. One of those activists even saying that it's actually much worse with Biden due to the manipulative nature of the Democrats pretending they're on your side, but really having absolutely no intention whatsoever of truly standing alongside you. It's what we have been saying forever. So they're finally learning. They might be slow learners, maybe a couple decades behind, but at least they're finally realizing the reality. Joe Biden is facing a crisis of support. It's not just independents. It's not just Republicans. It's not just moderates. It's also progressives. Almost every single voting bloc, except for the vote blue no matter who crowd, the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Nancy Pelosi fangirls, and of course fanboys, but mostly girls, everybody else has had enough. Here's Greta Thunberg just a couple weeks ago slamming Joe Biden and his Build Back Better plan.
This is not about some expensive, politically correct green act of bunny hugging or blah blah blah. Build back better, blah, blah, blah. Why? Blah, blah, blah.
And so the Democrats have once again spread themselves too thin, pushing a $3.5 trillion deal, Joe Biden's Build Back Better plan, as a promise to the far left wing. Of course, a politically calculated move, knowing they would never actually be able to pass it. And then a couple weeks later, report Nancy Pelosi shortens far left wish list during infrastructure negotiations. Once again, who has to compromise? Once again, who's getting the short end of the stick? The far lefty activists, the Hamas caucus, and Bernie Sanders cult. Far lefties are absolutely livid. I mean, they went hard in 2020 to try to replace Donald Trump. They did everything in their power to replace that evil orange man. And what did they get for it? A metaphorical knife in the back, as the individual claimed earlier. And oh, are they livid. Especially Bernie Sanders himself, who's now launching unhinged rants targeting Joe Manchin in West Virginia, writing op-eds in a local newspaper.
You can't do it's tell Manchin what he needs to do behind any sort of bill that needs to pass Congress. I want to read a little bit from Manchin's statement. He had really harsh words for Senator Bernie Sanders. He did not like that Senator Bernie Sanders did this op-ed in the biggest newspaper in West Virginia. This is what he said. This isn't the first time an out-of-stater has tried to tell West Virginians what's best for them, despite having no relationship to our state. Congress should proceed with caution on any additional spending, and I will not vote for a reckless expansion of government programs. No op-ed from a self-declared independent socialist is going to change that.
Nice.
And that right there, folks, essentially sums up the entire thing. That is the Democrat Party. The Republican Party has issues. Neocons are a problem. For the most part, they're being weeded out one at a time. But even though they're a disappointment, for the most part when it comes to legislation, when it comes to voting, you won't see this level of dysfunction between neocons and populist Republicans. On the left side, it seems as though they're at each other's necks, completely unable to come together and do anything productive. And so this is obviously what I was referring to in the analogy that I made at the start of the video. The Democrats have wed themselves to Bernie Sanders types. Bernie Sanders, who, by the way, isn't even a Democrat. He runs as a Democrat, but has been an independent his entire career. The Democrats, in a desperate attempt to remain relevant, have essentially absorbed the Green Party, or what would traditionally be a Green Party in a different political system. And if you follow foreign political systems and political party dynamics between far lefties and the generic moderate liberal parties, it's totally dysfunctional. They don't get along. In fact, in many cases, traditional Democrat parties and conservative parties across the globe get along a whole lot better than liberals and far lefties, Green Party type socialist Marxist types. And so the Democrats have put themselves between a rock and a hard place, folks. And my prediction, it's not going to end well for them. They've appealed to a group that is trying to start a political revolution. And in the next coming years, or potentially the next decade or so, if Democrats do not deliver on said revolution, the fracturing, the political divide between lefties and far lefties will continue to stretch until divorce is imminent. That's what I got for you guys though. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, a comment, subscribe, share it as much as possible. We are still shadow banned by the YouTube algorithm. I gotta get back to work though. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.